I'm Tonya Schultz. I am a sales enablement leader with Apps Associates, and I double as an engagement partner at Apps Associates as well these days. It's one of the pleasures of working at a smaller company, but that's the gig currently.
So how did you get that gig in the first place when you walk us through your career evolution?
Interestingly enough, I was sales enablement for a Fortune 5 company, Veritiv Corp, here in Atlanta, one of the Fortune 5s. And my consulting partner for Blue Wolf left the company upon IBM's acquisition, started at Apps Associates, and invited me to come along for the ride to start expanding the firm into the Southeast and expanding our Salesforce.com presence, because Salesforce is sort of my bailiwick. So when I came on board, it's interesting because I am firmly a practitioner. I've been practicing sales enablement for 15 years. That was not the typical hire for this consulting firm. And I think that you find that in lots of consulting firms. They like to hire consultants that have been consultants. So they took a chance on me and have been sort of moving me from project to project, but because sales enablement has always been my day job, I get the pleasure of doing sales enablement for this team as well. It's been great.
How critical of a role do you see pricing being part of sales enablement?
I think it's critical because there are two things to that. First, a lot of selling organizations really struggle with a sales rep leading with price. It's one of those things that organizations across the globe, particularly, interestingly enough, Fortune 500 companies, there are a load of sales reps. So for example, Office Depot, we had 1,200 sales reps all across the United States with all different geographies. And the easiest thing for a newbie in those roles is to walk in with 100 items and say, I'm going to beat your price on these 100 items, right? So the pricing organization is very uniquely positioned to be able to get that conversation out of the selling strategy. Where price is critically important, I think that there's another unique opportunity to be able to help the sales rep with the spin, to get it back out of the conversation again. One of the last projects that I did, we had McKinsey come in and work with us on a couple of different things for our larger corporate customers that we were struggling with margin. And in that conversation, we started to look at things that impacted the selling cycle and impacted the overall margin, but were not price. And it's interesting how that really has to become part of the negotiation efforts. It's all about bringing up the right questions and being able to negotiate at the end of the day. A lot of sales reps can get that first, meeting, but getting it a deal across the finish line with and do it profitably. Those negotiation skills are critical, and the pricing organization can really fuel that. And be part of the conversation, at least internally, to make sure that the sales rep is in the best possible position when they hit the ground running with that part of the deal, that part of the sales cycle. In selling it to the C-suite, I think that you've got to do a couple of things. I think that you have to demonstrate the need, just like with any sales. I'm trying to sell sales enablement. Everybody else is trying to sell the product that the company is putting out into the ecosystem. But you've got to demonstrate the need. And I think that for some organizations, they see sales enablement as an operational execution engine to fix their broken things.
Tonya, where does culture fit in the landscape?
At the end of the day, what we're talking about here is the difference between a selling culture and a culture of anything else, right? Merger or acquisition or cost cutting or any of those other drivers. So if you've got a selling culture and you're talking about sales enablement, that conversation ties beautifully into how to create your selling strategy and all of the things that support that selling strategy. If your culture is non-selling, then the sales enablement conversation it takes a flip into operations almost immediately, because that's what the focus is. But it brings us all the way back around to what I was saying before. You got to know the needs of the organization and the goals of the organization and become that tie between the two. And if your culture isn't selling, then you've got to do, frankly, if I was that practitioner trying to figure out that conversation, it would be a checkpoint for me. Is this organization set up for success? Because I think that those organizations that find themselves having the conversation that they do not have a selling culture, then part of the sales enablement conversation is creating one.
Let's shift the conversation to your involvement with the Sales Enablement Society. What got you involved in the first place?
Last year, about this time, I was trying to make the decision to go into consulting and talking to the Apps Associates team to make sure that I could still do sales enablement, because it is a passion of mine at this point. And while I was on LinkedIn, there was just a lot of traffic about the Sales Enablement Society, and all of the stories and the discussion threads that were happening were telling my story. It was amazing to me. It's one of those things that we may get to talk about a little bit today. Who do you go to if you're a sales enablement professional to get coaching or training or just help, direction, right? In most organizations, you're on an island. You're trying to figure things out on your own and pushing through and blazing a trail. It was the first time that I had found kindred spirits talking about exactly what I was going through. So I left Scott this wonderful long voicemail that I hope he deleted immediately, explaining to him that he was singing my song and I needed to talk to him immediately.
So Tonya, explain the Atlanta organization that is focused on helping promoting the Sales Enablement Conference. How did it get started? How did you get it off the ground?
The approach that I took was very similar to a couple of other chapters that got started very early. I decided to create a board first and figure out the rest of it later. With the board in place, I firmly believe, I said this on the video that I posted up last week, I firmly believe that decisions and plans and everything in life is better if you're not doing it by yourself. So I reached out to half a dozen people that I knew as practitioners in the Metro Atlanta area, that I'd worked with them in the past, had a lot of respect for, knew that they were sort of in the same place as me, and invited them to join me on the board. We got started last April, and then from there we launched the chapter in June. And we had 36 people in that very first meeting, and I was really excited about it because I was anxious to get everybody in the room and figure out what we were going to contribute to the society. And 3 days before, Scott picks up the phone and says, "Hey, we really need you guys to take communications. So can you have your chapter write a 2-minute plug that I can use on an interview that I'm doing next Friday? Can you tell us what it would take for them to come to the conference so we can get some member needs on a pad of paper?" So myself and the folks that were helping me plan, the board members, we redirected everything we were doing in that inaugural session and really focused on the conference. And interestingly enough, I think that it set the tone for everything that's happened since. Since then, we've been meeting almost weekly, and certainly not in person, but there are a handful of folks in Atlanta that are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but I've been very pleasantly surprised at how frequently members that, we all have day jobs and it's all volunteer. We have backup. You have folks that don't attend anything for 6 weeks and then all of a sudden they pop up and say, "How can I help?" It's been quite a ride, but I think it's why we are at a place to talk about so many industry impacting concepts in Dallas, because the way that we have created the society, the fact that it's all volunteers, the fact that we've been pushing through concepts and delivery and how to organize and how to band together this group of folks that are all across the country and not getting paid to do it. I have been absolutely blown away at how much of that I've encountered in my career.
Until you're clearly focused, you'll never be passionately committed. And if you think about it, that's what the sales enablement, that's what Tonya is personifying right here. She's clearly defined a purpose, and as a result, she's able to be passionately committed. And I love that. There's another piece that she brought up, which is so critical in sales enablement. And it brings up the old expression, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a team. What did she do in her leadership? She brought the board together first. She brought the team together because it really has allowed them. There's so many leadership qualities, which really, if you think about it, that's really what sales enablement is. It's really leadership. It's just leadership in the sales space. And so much of sales enablement is spent inside the organization, where leadership is so critical.
So, Tonya, what is your advice to other sales enablement leaders that are not yet in the society? Why should they join?
First of all, as a sales enablement leader, we know everyone in the industry at this point, you know where the landmines are and you know what you're struggling with. So each time I have a new society member, I pick up the phone for our Atlanta chapter, pick up the phone, have a quick conversation about what the needs are for them personally in their career with their organization. There's always something. So that brings me to two reasons why. Number one, I know all of the sales enablement leaders that I've spoken to carry my passion as well. That's why Dallas is going to be so cool. You want to contribute to this. You want to contribute to the organization. You want to contribute to the conversation because it's going to be industry changing. So that's number one. Number two, you're in a room of like-minded people. If you're struggling to sell something to C-suite, for example, or you're struggling to come up with a solution to that challenge that I mentioned before, you've got this great program, it's testing out really well, you want to roll it out, and the first market goes flat, you bring that to your peers in the society, and suddenly you have a ready-made bank of experts that can help you get over the hump. And that network of folks that can help you with live situations in your career where no one else in the organization really gets what sales enablement is or how to contribute to it, I think it's going to be invaluable for all of the enablement professionals out there.
My takeaway is that sales enablement is still really at the infant stage, and we still have a lot of purpose with which to define, which will in turn give us the passion. But just like we've seen in Tonya, there's a tremendous amount of passion. And let's do a shameless plug for Dallas, because that's, I think, what people are going to be able to get when they go to the unconference, the non-conference that Dallas is going to be. Because it truly is. It's going to be this type of dialogue, this type of discussion. For those companies that are getting it close to right, it's been a game changer. Yeah. You can see it all over the board. Yeah. We are the oil in the engine. That's what sales enablement is. It's not the gasoline, it's not the car, but it's the oil in the engine that's really going to help the engine run much more efficiently.
I have to challenge your metaphor, Mark, because I think it's too slick.
That is lame, Gerhard. That is lame. I'm running out of coffee here. I mean, I'm sorry. This is bad. So folks, this is Dallas. Just get ready for the cheese.
No, I like the expression that Tonya used a little earlier, which is you used the word bank. And to me, the Sales Enablement Society is like a central bank that you can borrow from at any time to improve your business. Thank you, Tonya, for spending time with us to explain your role and your evolution as a sales enablement leader, and also sharing the story of how Atlanta is taking a leading role in communications. And I'm very excited for Dallas on October 25th through the 28th. We're all going to be there, and we are going to share our ideas with you. So be there, and if you like this, hit the like button and share it with your peers. Thank you, Tonya. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, guys. It's been a
bet.
pleasure.
Great
See you
selling.
later.